Hello, welcome to Coffee and Dev, where I have my Wait a second, it's not coffee. It's actually water today because it's night time here and I didn't do Coffee and Dev in the morning and we missed doing it on Wednesday, but I wasn't. Well, actually, sorry, we missed doing it on last Friday, but I wasn't going to let us miss Wednesday, and I couldn't do it in the morning, but I decided we're going to do it at night. So maybe you're watching me from somewhere else in the world and you are having your coffee, and great. If you aren't, and you have, like, I don't know, beer or something, or even water, it's all right. Uh, this is just called Coffee and Dev, where we grow as developer and the time it takes to basically drink a beverage is what we'll say now on. Um, so we're going to talk about basically building a promotion packet. How do you get promoted is a big question that a lot of us have, and a lot of DMs and people asking me. And I figured, well, now is the time to start putting something together and explaining it. So you might be sitting, and a lot of devs even are like, what is a promotion packet? I have never heard about this. Well, let's talk about this promotion packet. It's essentially you making a compiled version of your accomplishments and what you've achieved this year, what you've been up to. You try and outline the last, say, if it's semi-annual, then 6 months. You're going to outline 6 months of data, and you're going to have someone go along with you on the journey. You want people to really understand the contributions you were doing, not just the high level stuff anymore. It's very easy to be like, hey, what was your KPI? Did you meet that KPI? But we're not just focusing on that. There are plenty of other things throughout the year you're going to be doing that you would like to cover to highlight all the behind the scenes things, such as like bug fixes, miscellaneous tickets, improvements that weren't tied to KPI. We put this all together, and then we sprinkle pixie dust on top of it. Manager pixie dust, which is gathering recommendations of gathering your current roles and responsibilities and duties, and basically saying that, okay, this is what you're doing, here's how you're meeting, and then here's how you're exceeding, and presenting the case forward that you should be either like a merit increase or a title change, as well as going out and trying to find either a peer or another person in the org of leadership and getting them to essentially say, yeah, this person should be promoted. So why should you build this, right? You're like, this is not my problem. The company has a formal process. The company does X. Well, let's talk about things that I've seen in the past at various places. They will have a process in place, and you will show up, and you're thinking that you're going to potentially get a promotion, and you bring this up, and then what you find out is, oh, okay, great. We can talk about this at the next eval or next promotion or review or whatnot, because we're going to outline what you should be doing today, or we want to make a case to prove that you meet those requirements to get you promoted. See, the worst thing is that just essentially burns up a bunch of time, like 6 months more of your time. So we want the promotion packet to happen at minimum 1 quarter out from whenever your formal process is. And the reason why we want it to be 1 quarter out is anyone who's worked as a manager or had a large enough reports and has to have done a budget knows that 1 quarter out from that, like at the start of the quarter, is when they're going to probably facilitate how much the spend is for that promotion merit phase. So you want to be before that quarter to start saying like, hey, I have people that are going to want a promotion. We need to make sure the budget's there. So then you're not having to fight at last minute, or you have a solid candidate show up and you're like, look, this person's done great work. And they're like, look, the budget's already been allocated. There's no funds for that. And this is why we want to build it out. And this is why we want to build it out sooner the better. It also makes it very convenient to have something formalized in a packet where you can essentially just send it in an email, and your manager can just forward on to their manager, who can forward on to whoever, another manager or VP or a C level. And it becomes actually quite hard to argue with the facts presented in front of you versus you telling someone like, hey, I should be promoted because I did good work. And then they try and make the cases, well, they worked on X and they did Y, and they're really hard worker. Is much harder than here's the facts, here's the entire timeline, and the better you can build out the case, the easier it is, right? So I want to talk about how do you build it? This is probably the question I get. Like, what does this packet look like? Well, it could just be a Google Doc. It doesn't have to be anything crazy fancy. And essentially what you want to do is, okay, get your technical objectives or your org objectives, outline those, and outline how you're meeting them. And I'm saying you, as not a manager, as an individual. If your manager is willing to put in the effort and time to build this out for you, even better. But you really need to pull that in on yourself and hold yourself accountable on that and be like, okay, this is the plan. I'm going to build this. And then I'm essentially going to forward it over to my manager for feedback and criticism and whatnot. It should not be the other way where you go to your manager, hey, I want to get promoted, and they have to build a packet. Like, if you have someone who has the time and the ability and capability to do that, great. But if you want to just make sure it gets done, then I highly suggest just doing it yourself. And also it's your voice then, right? Like, it really, you drive home the points. So okay, find out what your technical objectives are. Even if you don't have objectives tied to yourself, keep the company technical objectives. Write those down, then write how you've tied into them. If you can't say how you tied into them, then you got a problem. You need to either pick up more tasks that tie directly to them, or you need to be working with your manager in the sense of, we have these technical objectives. How do I make sure I'm achieving those based off the work that I'm doing? Or can you find me work that is related to my team that I'm in, but that would be also related to the technical objectives? Because not everything you're going to do is not going to be like, ooh, super KPI. So that's one thing. Then you want to talk about major accomplishments. So this is like your revenue increase, your COGS reduction. If you were assigned to a project that was behind schedule and you're able to put it back on track, this is a big achievement. Also just meeting deadlines, especially if consistently you're surrounded by other teams or teams where they're not meeting the deadlines, but you're really able to get your team to move forward and be very close to the deadline or on the deadline or even before. So essentially anything that can be measured is a measure. Anything that can be measured is a major accomplishment. Now, for anything that can't be like directly measured or isn't so clear to the business value, so non-major accomplishments are things that we want to document afterwards, which are like the smaller JIRA tickets, the cleanup, the bug fixes, things that typically go unnoticed. Maybe it's just refactoring a small method or something that no one wants to touch. You're able to refactor and add the test. I mean, you're not going to talk about the measurement of like, look, I got the test coverage from 20% to 20.1%. But if you can talk about how the thing that you did add is critical to the entire system and how multiple different people tried to pick it up, nobody would pick it up, or how this code was linked to outages in the past or things like that. Then the next section I typically get people run through is leadership. So how are you being a leader in the org is one criteria. How are you being a leader in your industry is another criteria. And how are you being more so a leader in the sense of like mentorship leader, like bringing up those around you? Maybe you're not running a team. Maybe you're not guiding people into like, here's what we need to do. Here's why we're working on that. Like, not leadership of the sense of like taking ownership and driving home a project and getting everyone aligned. More like the leadership of, hey, more so actually, I should just say mentorship, more like the mentorship side. Now you might be sitting there going, look, that sounds great, but I'm not a leader in the industry, or I don't got time for that. It's like, okay, start within your team. So that might be talking about things that you've learned that are beneficial to your team, then expanding that. How do you do that out to the org or the department? So those are lunch and learns. And then from there, if you can take your lunch and learn and then do a meetup about that, now you've shown leadership across the entire thing. You showed leadership within your team. You should, or more so, I guess, expertise within your team, expertise within your organization, and then expertise within your industry. And it's all from one piece of content. So you didn't have to do 3 different things. You didn't have to do anything fancy, and tie it into documentation. Like a good example of this would be like the inner workings of Docker. Because you're new on a team and you want to figure out how Docker works and you want to explain that to your coworkers and you want to write up a collab page so everyone on the team understands how Docker works. Great, write up the collab page, present that within your team, ask for criticism and feedback. Now, present that outwards to the rest of the org. Now, take it a step further, gather the criticism and feedback again, and then just hit up a bunch of meetups, or worst case, you just do an online meetup on the topic and post on LinkedIn or whoever you can, or hit up existing meetups and like, hey, you haven't done a meetup in a while. I was wondering if you want to just like send this out to your members, etc. And then the last thing I talk about this packet is you're looking for recommendations from others. So these are like your quotes or written recommendation from your peers, your boss, and other leaders in the org. Typically what I do is I tell people, write out what the most ideal thing they could say about you is. So essentially write out their sentence, and then you send it to them. Obviously you ask like, hey, would you be fine with doing a recommendation for me? I'm trying to get promoted, blah, blah, blah. Cool, yeah, they are. And then you just send them the little blurb about what you wrote. This is what I'm thinking you would say. Let me know if this is correct or not, or what would you want to change in this? You essentially want to make it so easy for them that they go, yeah, that looks good. Cool. Great. You didn't have to hound someone. You didn't have to put all the burden on them. They aren't feeling like, oh, what if I write the wrong thing? You cut all that out. So I should have had a summary slide on this. How we build it is mark out how we align to our technical objectives or KPIs, strategic goals, whichever your company is using. And then within engineering itself, if you're a dev, and then also from the aspect of the company itself, they might be the same, they might not always be the same, they might have overlap, but we want to cover both of those. Major accomplishments, essentially things that can be measured. Then our non-major accomplishments, the things that aren't directly measurable or the measurement would seem insignificant, but we should still mention. Then we get into expertise and leadership, and then we get into essentially direct recommendations from others. And you put this all together in your doc, and then you forward it to who you report, and you're like, this is how I think that I am deserving and at the level of a promotion. Please provide feedback and or criticism, or what can I do to make sure that this moves forward? And just like that, we have a promotion packet and we moved one step closer to getting promoted. So for more content on Tech at Scale at all these platforms, most of it is on YouTube and Twitch. And occasionally you will find me on Twitch when I am not on YouTube. And it is not scheduled. It is just kind of randomness of when I am doing kind of the behind the scenes stuff. So the slides of making this, or you'll see me sometimes come on for like an hour or two. And it's like, oh, I have to make all the Canvas thumbnails for all the YouTube videos and write the scripts. And I might be working on something or reading about something. I did it like an SRE thought experiment or SRE theory exercise is what I think I called it, where I essentially wrote out a spec of a company that was theorized, and it was like, how would I tackle helping this company move forward? And sometimes chat's there, and sometimes we have a really interesting time. I'm going to end the stream on LinkedIn and YouTube, and I am just going to continue the behind the scenes stuff on Twitch. So that's it.